Liz and I went to Sierra Leone for about 5 or 6 months. Sierra Leone is a small little country in West Africa, and 5 or 6 months is a pretty long time to live really anywhere. And we did some mission work there through an organization known as Mercy Ships. And it's a very innovative organization because think giant floating hospital ships. If you've ever seen how they work, they're very, very good at what they do. They just have it dialed on in. And they invite people onto the ship who are locals in third world or developing nations, and they show the example of Jesus Christ by helping the poor and the forgotten. And they give medical attention, surgery. They have actually so many different services. I was blown away. I thought they were really just kind of surgeries when I first joined Mercy Ships. They have agricultural programs. They have eye programs. They have dental clinics. And I got to see the most exciting parts of the work there in Sierra Leone because I was the videographer on board the ship. Because as the video guy, you follow the excitement. Isn't that just so cool? I just felt so lucky. Like, Bo, the president of Sierra Leone is coming to visit and to do a speech. We need you to follow him around with your camera. Things like that. Liz, of course, joined me because we're husband and wife. I'd hoped that she'd join me for 5 or 6 months, but it was a very difficult thing for her to do this. It wasn't easy at all just to drop everything and go. But we did. She was the nurse on board the ship. One of the nurses. Of course, there's lots of nurses and doctors, but there was only one videographer. Me. Oh boy, it was so much fun. So many crazy stories there. But there's the brief introduction about, what Mercy Ships is. So we lived in a small little cabin, just the two of us, which was very nice not having other roommates with us. That'd be kind of awkward. Let's see, the food was actually pretty good. There was lots of rice. About every other day they'd have like rice and then normal food. Now you're probably thinking like, hey, what do you mean? Are you saying that rice is not normal? This particular rice, I would say, was not normal. Because, now I didn't know this before, but there are different kinds of rice, different qualities. I had no idea. But we had local Africans volunteering on board the ship, and Mercy Ships would pay a little something for them to be on board the ship, and they would be trained in Western medicine. And so in that way, when Mercy Ships left the country, they would be leaving people behind who would still have a working knowledge of Western medicine. And that's called capacity building. They build the capacity of the country. Isn't that brilliant? So it's not just a bunch of foreigners coming in, saving the day, and then leaving. It's like they're actually helping the local population. Really cool stuff. So the locals were like, we won't eat any of this rice. Or if they did, they didn't really care for it. They said, this is like the kind of rice that spills out of the containers and it's laying there, it's there on the dock, and then they just sweep up this rice into bags and then they sell it for really cheap. So we ate stuff like that. So there was, it wasn't the most pleasant of things. Of course you have to complain about the food because we Americans love food, and that's just kind of a social time. You gather around good food with good friends and you have good conversation. In the African culture, at least in Sierra Leone, it's not really the same. When they gather around to eat, they eat to eat. They don't eat to socialize. And I noticed this when I was sitting there along with all my other, white friends. I had black friends, of course. I'm not being racist. There was just white guys and black guys. That's just the fact. But anyway, good friends with both parties involved. But I noticed that they were segregated. All the black people were eating alone, and all the white people were eating alone. And I was like, screw this. I'm not gonna, segregation is ancient. And let's be open-minded here and loving people, all right? So, I crossed the line and I went over there and sat with my African friends. Well, turns out that they were sitting alone purposefully. When you're eating in Africa, as I mentioned, you eat to eat, not you eat to socialize. And so as I'm there, talking with some of my buddies and just kind of eating, outside of dinner or lunch or whatever, they converse just fine. But when you're eating, they stop and they just kind of look at you, and they're no longer eating. That their fork is down on their plate. And then you end the conversation, or that topic rather, and then they resume eating. So they sat by themselves because they didn't want to be bothered. They just wanted to eat. Isn't that so sad? Now, of course, this is a big generalization, and you will still meet people from Africa who enjoy talking while they eat. And okay, so big generalization here, but for the most part, within the culture, that's just how things operate in a lot of Sierra Leone. Of course, there are exceptions. So I learned so many things like that. And of course, just this doofus that I am going in and, I'm gonna talk with these people, and they're just kind of mildly annoyed. Like, come on, man, just let me eat. But they're so polite, they won't actually say that. Of course not. Wow, I made such good friends there. And the stories that I filmed and shared with the world were just so cool, so powerful, so moving. And that actually made me create my own nonprofit organization. The idea that this good work needs to be captured on film and shared with other people. Because there are good people out there, not perfect people, but they're good people. And they're out there trying to do these good things, but no one knows about them unless they're filmed, unless photos are taken of them, unless those situations are captured and then shared. And I kind of struggled with this, I'll be honest with you, I really did. And I thought to myself, they shouldn't hire a videographer. They should hire another nurse, another doctor. I mean, that's the meaningful work, right? Not necessarily. These nurses and doctors couldn't do what they're doing unless they were supported. And the supporters couldn't support them unless they knew what they were doing. And that was my job. Sort of, to use a biblical example, Aaron in the Old Testament, he was the spokesman. And Moses was the guy who was really doing the dirty work. I mean, the holy work. But he wasn't a very good public speaker. There wasn't a way for him to communicate what he was doing. Isn't that cool? So that's what really drove me to create Knox Studio. And I hope the nonprofit takes off. I hope it goes somewhere. Maybe at the time when you're actually watching this video, maybe it's just this big organization and that there are other like-minded artists, videographers, photographers, web designers helping other people capture their work and communicate it out there. So that was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned when I was in Africa. And some crazy adventures there. Oh boy, getting pulled over, getting yelled at, screamed at, weapons everywhere. It was insane. More stories to come.